Welcome once again to Against the Spread, where we pick NFL games for you against the spread. Overall, this year, we've done a really good job, so we won't mention how we did last week. Let's just get right into this week, G-Lo. Let's get right into week 9. And you know what? We actually mentioned in this very segment earlier in the year that, like, for some reason, the Thursday games this year are really good. Now, when we looked ahead at the schedule, we thought this one was going to be really good. Packers, Niners, potentially two teams who could come out of the NFC and win a Super Bowl. Now they're two teams that maybe have some issues in the run game. The Niners are running out of people to run the football for them. The Packers can't stop the run. Never mind that. The Packers are 5.5-point favorites. Who do you like in the Thursday night?
Yeah, even Saturday, I looked at this on the schedule and thought it was a juicy matchup, but the 49ers have just been devastated. No Jimmy Garoppolo, and now George Kittle is out for 8 weeks, essentially the rest of the season. And like you said, they have nobody left to run the football. The interesting thing coming into today now is that it doesn't really seem like the Packers do either, because Jamal Williams was just placed on the COVID-19 list and Aaron Jones is out. So running back is a questionable position in this game. But I've got to go with the Packers here, even at a spread that may be a little bit uncomfortable for me. And it's because of the 49ers record without Jimmy G in the lineup. They're 5-22 without him. They lose by an average of 6.6 points per game, and they don't even score 20 points when he's out on average. So given all those numbers and the fact that everybody else is injured, Debo, Raheem Mostert, Jeff Wilson, the list goes on and on, I've got to go with Green Bay because they have Aaron Rodgers.
Yeah, and the Niners, since starting last year 8-0 and maybe sneaking up on some teams and catching them, off guard, they've been pretty much an average football team since the back end last year. Obviously, the playoffs with the run to the Super Bowl, but then they've been basically average this year. And I understand a big part of that is the fact that the majority of their salary cap is on IR, but I feel good with the Packers in this game because the majority of the Niners salary cap is on IR, and the Packers might be getting Aaron Jones back. He moves up to questionable right now, so by the time Thursday rolls around, he could be in the game. Either way, 5.5 is very comfortable for me in the Thursday nighter. Minnesota is favored in the game, and it's in division against another team that is somewhat struggling at the bottom of the NFC North and is light years away from where the Packers are right now, and that's the Detroit Lions. Who do you like in this one? The two teams playing a little bit better. Minnesota obviously playing real well against Green Bay last week, but have they shown you enough to make them 4-point favorites in division?
I really struggled with this one a bit because it's really hard to forget what the Vikings did in every game before last week's. But the other thing that's hard to forget is the image of Dalvin Cook running all over the Green Bay Packers. I just can't put that out of my head. He had 30 carries. He had over 200 total yards, 4 touchdowns, nearly 6 yards a carry. Those are dominant numbers, and you have to think that after seeing that, the Vikings will then do that again against a Lions 23rd ranked run defense that Dalvin Cook should feast on. And so I'm going to take the Vikings because of Dalvin Cook and the winning formula that they showed over the weekend and that big win over the Packers. But also because Kenny Galladay's out. And I think that hugely impacts what the Lions try to do on offense. So Vikings by 4 at home, I'll take that.
I think you said it best, and that's the game script. And I think they can do it again. But can they do it enough to win comfortably against Detroit? I mean, I don't know many 2-5 football teams that I think, in division, they're going to win comfortably. And so if this number was 2.5, which is where it started, then I'd be all in on Minnesota. But as it's moved to 4, I'm going to go against my better judgment and have some sort of faith in the pencil, Matt Patricia, and I'm going to go with the Lions. Although this is one of those ones I said about like 7 times last week. This might be one that I regret. This is the one this week that I think I might regret, but I'm going to go Lions in this game. Denver at Atlanta. Line started at 3.5. It's now -4. Speaking of teams that maybe have changed your perception on them, have either of these two teams changed the way you feel about them still below 500? Who do you like in this matchup?
I'm still deeply confused by both of these teams. I think that's my perception. It has been of the Falcons for sure, and it continues to be that with them. And then the Broncos, I mean, they got that comeback win over the Chargers, but I think we can blame the Chargers more than the Broncos in that game. So I kind of went to the numbers for this one to help me determine who I'm going to pick here, and it's the Falcons' home record that really worries me here. The Falcons haven't won any other games at home, and they're also 0-4 against the spread at home as well. And on the flip side, the Broncos are 3-0 on the road against the spread. So the numbers are telling me the Broncos good against the spread on the road, the Falcons terrible at home. So I'm going to go with the Broncos here because of that.
I am as well. Broncos 5-2 against the spread overall, as you said. And in close games with two bad teams, you don't trust either of them. Then just give me the points. Just take the dog. And underdogs have done very well this year, and so I will take a dog in this scenario, and I'll take the Broncos and feel quite good about it. I don't know if I'm taking a dog in this next one, though, although the line's a little bit bigger than I thought, and it's grown since it came out. Jacksonville hosting Houston. Now, to be frank, we're not really sure who's going to be on Houston's team by the time this game kicks off, 1 o'clock Eastern. But Jacksonville, a dog, 6.5 points against Houston. Who do you got in this one?
Whether the Texans trade somebody or not, and we're mostly speaking about Will Fuller here, I don't think it really makes a difference. Since that survivor pool killing win over the Colts in week 1 that I was a victim of, the Jags have allowed at least 30 points in every game, and they've lost every single one of them. In the last 5 weeks, they're 0-5 against the spread, and that includes a week 5 loss to this Texans team, in which the Texans were 6.5-point favorites, and they won by 16. So I'm going to go with Deshaun Watson and the Texans. You know, things are far from good in Houston, but they're worse in Jacksonville. And because of what we saw not that long ago between these two teams, I feel pretty comfortable with it.
Yeah, this one is it's weird. They're both 1-6 football teams. Although I look at every position group and I'm thinking to myself, well, the Texans are much better. And it's not like they played vastly different schedules because they're playing the same conference in the same division. 6.5 points is a lot. And I don't have any faith in Jacksonville, but I do like taking points. So I'll take the home dog. And okay, maybe what I said 45 seconds ago was wrong. Maybe this is the game that I'm going to regret. But I'm actually talking myself into Jacksonville. I came into this expecting to take Houston, but I'm going to take the points, and I'm going to take Jacksonville, and I'm going to hopefully live to talk about it next week.
Yeah, I mean, risky plays can pay off, and so you know you've made a couple of risky ones already. So let's see.
Well, I made a risky one last week when I thought that the Kansas City Chiefs were going to beat another professional NFL football team by 20 or more points. And I'm going to go risky again. Kansas City, 10.5-point favorites against Carolina at home, mind you. But Carolina has played teams pretty tough, and they are 500 against the spread, despite the fact the record is 3-5. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, I did not make a risky pick. Well, I mean, I guess it depends on how you define risky in this situation. If you're betting with the Jets, it's probably risky. But I didn't take that big spread, and it hurt me. And I haven't gone back and checked the stats, but I imagine I haven't done well because I've been picking a lot against the Chiefs this year, and thinking, you know, they have big spreads. They're not going to cover all of them. I'm bound to get lucky every once in a while, and that just hasn't been the case. KC is, despite being huge favorites every game, they're 6-2 against the spread, which means that I'm going to stop overthinking about picking KC by big spreads. I'm going to take them here. You know, the Panthers are fine, but the Chiefs are the defending champs, and they're just getting better and better. So I'll take it.
I think you have hit on like the Carolina Panthers football slogan for 2020. The Panthers are fine. Like that's kind of what they are. They're fine, and the Chiefs are spectacular and only getting better, it seems, week to week. So I too am going to take the Chiefs. Let's go from a big spread to a short one, but still at least one team, maybe another, if you believe their fan base. I don't. Teams that are potential Super Bowl contenders, certainly division contenders, and that's Seattle going to Buffalo. Seattle favored by 2.5. This line started at 1.5, and it's 2.5. I'm surprised this line is this close. But I'm a much bigger fan of one of the quarterbacks than the other. Where are you going in this game?
I wonder who you like more. Um, now that the Bills are over that Patriots hump, it should be relieving for them, right? They've beat the Patriots for the first time in 7 games, but man, they face a gauntlet of a schedule over the next little while. They've got the Seahawks at home. They go to the Cardinals. They face the Chargers. They've got the 49ers. I mean, who knows where they'll be. And then they have the Steelers. It's just a real run of really tough games for the Bills. And they haven't, frankly, been playing very good football. They just survived the Patriots. And like you were alluding to, the way this Seahawks offense is playing with Russell Wilson, it's really hard to pick against this team. I mean, what DK Metcalf is doing right now is unbelievable. It's really hard, especially with the small spread the way that it is, to go against the Seahawks. So I'm going to pick them. They're one of the NFL's best teams. So it's pretty easy for me to take this one.
They're one of the NFL's best teams, and they might be, and I know we just talked about Kansas City, they might be the NFL's best offense, and that's with like a revolving door at running back. They lead the NFL in scoring, lead the NFL in yards per play, and 56 points off turnover. That's 17 more than the next closest team. And Wilson, if it's not Mahomes as a back-to-back MVP, the answer at this point is probably Russell Wilson. He's played magnificently in all different types of situations. So I am very comfortable with Seattle, even though they're going to the East Coast and on the road. It's never seemed to faze them under Pete Carroll and certainly of late. And so I got Seattle in this one. Another game in the East, another game where quarterback play is going to be a big driver of conversation. Chicago, 5.5-point dogs, going to Ryan Tannehill and the Tennessee Titans. His line opened at 6.5. It's pretty 50-50 right now. 52% of the public was with Chicago and 48% is with Tennessee. And the highs for the Titans have been extremely high, and the lows for the Bears have been extremely low. But these two teams are probably somewhere in that murky middle. Who do you like in this game?
The Bears have been impossible. They're an impossible team to pick this year. I imagine if we put together all of the clips of me picking Bears games, they'd be such a roller coaster because I'm all over the place. I have no idea what to do. But here, I kind of went back to the numbers again. Chicago is 3-1 against the spread on the road, and 7 of their 8 games have been decided by 1 score. And so coming up against a team like the Titans, who have kind of struggled a bit to get it together over the last 2 games, especially last week against a Bengals team that hadn't been able to close teams out and then did against the Titans. I like taking the points here and taking that Bears defense, which despite, the Mitchell Trubisky, Nick Foles confusion in Chicago, the Bears defense is legit. And so I'll take that. And maybe next week I'll be here again cursing the Bears.
Well, I think what you're getting to is both of these teams specialize on playing close football games. The Titans find ways to win them oftentimes when you don't think that they should, but they're still close. And I do think this game is going to be close. I would have felt a bit more comfortable if the line stayed at 6.5, but even at 5.5, I'm going to actually ride with the Bears. And I think this is going to be a field goal game either way, even though I think the long-term prospects of the Titans is much better than the long-term prospects of the Bears. I don't know if there was a team at this point last year where we thought the long-term prospects of that team and the quarterback were higher than that of the Ravens. But people are selling Ravens and Lamar Jackson stock as fast as possible, which is maybe a good time to bet on them. They're -3 against the Colts, going to Indy. Who do you like in this game?
This is a really fascinating matchup because, as you said, Lamar Jackson is not passing the football well, and I don't think it's all his fault. They just don't have a really good passing game set up there. And they come against an Indianapolis defense that is turning the ball over a ton. They have the more interceptions than anybody, and they score more touchdowns than any other defense. And, Lamar Jackson's first play of the game against the Steelers was a pick 6. So that's going to be a matchup that I'm going to watch in this game, but I'm still going to go with the Ravens here. I love this spread. The Ravens are still a dominant playmaking team. They controlled the game against the Steelers for large parts of it, despite losing the game. And as much as I like the Colts defense, still a little bit iffy on the offense and whether they can make the same amount of big plays as the Ravens are capable of making, and they can still run the ball really well. I mean, they put up 270 rushing yards against the Steelers in a loss. So everything here, in my opinion, is pointing to the Ravens, and so I'm going to take the Ravens.
So I showed up here ready to pick against the Ravens, right? It's just like a confluence of issues. They miss Marshall Yanda in interior blocking. Now Ronnie Stanley done for the year, so there goes your tackle. Offensively, they've been a bit of a mess up front at times. And we're seeing that in the quarterback play. Lamar Jackson, although he's very elusive, somehow has been sacked 19 times, tied for sixth most in the league. And his completion percentage is down to 60.5, which is 29th in the league. Those are not two good numbers in concert. However, this line is way too close for me. And when you look at the Steelers-Ravens game, I mean, granted, the Steelers didn't play their best football, but it was incredibly close. And the Ravens now become the first team ever to outrush a team by 200 yards, pass for more yards than them, and still find a way to lose. And so because it was an L and not a W, we're looking at the Ravens, maybe as that glass is still being half empty. But in this spot against the Colts, who I don't think are nearly as good as Pittsburgh, I actually think 2.5 points. I'm looking at the Ravens glass as half full. And so I am going to pick with the Ravens, even though like midway through, I forgot how that analogy worked. And I had to double check to make sure I was saying it.
I think you nailed it, but I'm actually not sure either. And one thing neither of us mentioned is that Ravens defense. The Ravens defense is great, right?
Yes.
Lamar Jackson's could struggle, sure, but they're going to run the ball and the defense is going to be stellar. So it's really easy to pick the Ravens on such a small spread for me.
Yeah, two teams who are not great, although their defenses are competing at least. I mean, my mom as a kid told me that if I have nothing nice to say, then like don't say anything. And also, I'm going to try and keep it positive as the Giants go to Washington in the NFC least. These are the two teams that are in the basement, but the Giants gave Tampa Bay a run, and Washington football team has 2 wins. So make a rosy picture out of what will be a game that nobody watching this ends up watching. Washington is -3 favorites. Who do you like in this one?
Well, I'll keep it positive as well, just like your mom taught you. And I'm gonna say that like these are 2 good defenses, right? Like we saw on Monday night that if it wasn't for 2 terrible turnovers from Daniel Jones, the Giants probably beat the Buccaneers. And Washington has the best passing defense in the NFL right now, and one of the best defensive lines in the NFL. So if you're looking at it positively, you're going to watch this game and you're going to see a lot of good defense. You're also going to see a lot of bad offense, and that's why I think it's going to be a really close game. So I'm going to take the Giants. I think it's just going to be close enough. It was 1 point last time these 2 teams played. So I like to keep it really close, and I think it'll be within a field goal.
Yeah, I'm going to take the Giants as well. If you told me this was -3 the other way, I wouldn't be overly surprised, quite frankly. And the Giants have been terrible for a while. They're 13-43 since going 11-5 a couple of years ago. But you know who's been terrible for longer? Washington, right? There are no real remnants of a good football team within that franchise. And so in this spot, I'm going to pick the Giants, who did lose in the primetime game on Monday night. But I know there's no participation ribbons, but you probably, if you're a Giants player, left that game with a bit of confidence, saying, if we put it together in all 3 phases, we can compete with one of the best teams in the sport. And if Daniel Jones doesn't make some untimely decisions, we should win that game. So they definitely should win a game against Washington. So give me the points. I've got the Giants. Another close line. These are all almost pick-ems. The Las Vegas Raiders go to the Los Angeles Chargers. Those are 2 teams I always have to double check to make sure I'm actually saying the correct city because they've moved so often. The Chargers are 1.5 point favorites at home in this close game. Who you like?
The Chargers, I really like the Chargers. To answer your question, I really like what they're doing with Justin Herbert under center. I think the offense is so much fun. But this is a team that's now blown 3 straight 16-point leads. And they have 5 double-digit blown leads this season. part of me wonders whether Anthony Lynn is on the hot seat. Like he might get fired because of all this. But all that said, I really do like what Herbert and the Chargers offense is doing. And I think the Raiders are a good team, but their defense struggles a little bit. So I'm going to take the Chargers, although I would say if you're choosing which games to bet on, maybe stay away from this one because it's a little volatile.
Yeah, this one's tough because I do think the Chargers are a better team. Justin Herbert is playing out of his mind in a fantasy league, not in the one that we're both in, where I'm getting my head beat in, but another one where I'm doing okay. I traded Justin Herbert and some things for Patrick Mahomes a couple weeks ago, and I'm losing that trade right now. Like, that's how good Justin Herbert has played. Mike Williams is now a big part of that offense with Herbert's arm, but they don't end up winning any of these games. They just excite you for a while and give you fantasy numbers. Las Vegas is rested. They're getting relatively healthy. So I'm really torn. Do I pick the team who, like, my eyes tell me is better? Or do I pick the team that has consistently played better, and that would be the Raiders? Since the Raiders are a bit of a dog, and since they're getting barely any points, but since they are, I'll take the Raiders, but this I think will be an exciting game. But two teams that are still tough to figure out.
I think that was the least convincing pick
either
of us have made all.
Yeah.
It was like you were asking me.
Yeah, I basically was. Yeah, let us know in the comments who we should pick, because clearly we're still not sure. I'm relatively more sure about this next game as we move to the 4:25 p.m. Eastern kickoff. Miami going to Arizona. We know Tua's going to play. We're not necessarily sure how well he's going to play, but we're also not necessarily sure how much it matters because that defense is playing lights out. They get Kyler Murray. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, recency bias almost led me to pick the Dolphins because I really did like what they did over the weekend in that incredible blowout win over the Rams. Really shocking. I mean, they made Goff look really bad, which he does to himself sometimes. But like you said, that is a good defense, and the team scored in every way imaginable. But that also meant that I was forgetting what the Cardinals did last time out, and that was come back from 13 points against Seattle, drop more than 500 yards on them, force Russell Wilson into 3 turnovers, and then win in overtime. That's a remarkable thing. They're the only team to do that against the Seahawks. They're the only team to win. So given all that, given what we saw from the Cardinals a couple weeks ago, the fact that they're at home, and Tua is still, this is only a second game. So I'm going to go with the Cardinals. I like them here at home.
Yeah, Miami had won 4 of the last 5. So when this came out at 6, I was like, okay, I can ride with the Dolphins in this game. But it comes down to 4.5. Makes me feel a bit better about the Cardinals, who, again, are coming off a bye. I love teams coming off a bye, specifically one that's at home and doesn't have to travel. So, yeah, I will not use the recency bias of what happened in the last 7 days. Like you, I'm going to go back to the last 14 days and pick Arizona and Kyler Murray. All right, there is no real reason to watch this game. Two storied rivals in the different conferences who always competed for who had the most Super Bowls. Well, one team is a lot more closer to getting a ring this season than the other. Pittsburgh goes to Dallas, where even though they're on the road, they are 13.5-point favorites, going to a Cowboys team that might be playing Cooper Rush at quarterback. I don't necessarily know if it matters who's playing quarterback necessarily for the Cowboys, because every phase of that team is a mess, but 13.5 points is a lot. Who do you got?
Maybe if Andy Dalton were playing in this game, I would think about taking the Cowboys out of that line. But with Ben DiNucci or Cooper Rush or Garrett Gilbert, I don't think it really matters, because those guys playing behind an offensive line that is just being decimated. I mean, Carson Wentz literally handed the ball to them 4 times on Sunday night, and the offense could do nothing. There's no reason here I would ever think about taking the Cowboys. I have to take the Steelers. The idea of that defensive line playing against that Cowboys offense must be terrifying for whoever's going to start for the Cowboys in that game. I just think they're going to feast here. It's going to be a big win for the Steelers, who are going to go 8-0.
So this might be the earliest in a season, first week in November, where a team breaks the huddle and they say 1, 2, 3 Cancun. because that's basically what's going to be for the Cowboys. Is we've already seen it. Guys are playing for themselves and playing not to get hurt because they know the season is over. They know the season was over when Dak Prescott's year was over. Not only do I think Pittsburgh can cover the 13.5, I'm going to get off something that you'd advised me to do, and I'm not even going to stream the Jets and Survivor. I'm giving you my Survivor pick early. I'm going to pick Pittsburgh in Survivor against the Cowboys, which means I'm not going to pick the New England Patriots against the Jets in Survivor. And that tells you all you need to know about, one, the New England Patriots, and two, the Dallas Cowboys. Transitioning to the New England Patriots, who I was set to, but I'm not going to pick against Survivor, against the New York Jets. Will they win against the New York Jets? I mean, is that even a real question? I guess at this point it has to be. They're minus 7-point favorites, so the spread says they're going to win by a touchdown. Do you say the same?
I think so. I think there's nothing like a game against the Jets to snap a team out of a funk, and that's exactly what the Patriots are in right now. But I think there was a lot of good takeaways from that Bills game, despite losing in such a heartbreaking fashion. They were able to run the ball really well. They stayed in the game. They scored points, which they hadn't been doing. And you know, as much as the Bill Belichick defense is not what we've come to expect from it, the Jets are just 32nd in like every offensive category that matters. So I can't take the Jets. I'm not going to do it. Gladly take the Patriots by a touchdown.
Yeah, and the Jets offensively have one game where they've put up more than 300 yards. And I don't think the next one is going to be one of them, even losing a bunch of his best defenders, either to free agency or to, sitting out due to COVID-19. Bill Belichick is still a much more elaborate defensive mind than Adam Gase is an offensive mind. And speaking of Gase, this is my time to routinely tell you that he has lost more games than 20 points than he has won games as a New York Jets head coach.
Yikes.
I don't know if he's going to lose this one by 20, but I do think he's going to lose it by at least 7. And so I'm going to take the Patriots. No longer is Jets Patriots a game that Tom Brady is featuring in, but he's got another division rivalry, the Saints. And we saw the way it started to start the year. Not the best football for the Bucs, but they've come a long way since. They're now 5.5-point favorites at home, hosting the Saints on Sunday night. Who do you like in this one?
Yeah, you mentioned that they have come a long way, and I definitely thought that. But then, Monday night came, and the offense didn't look great. It didn't look like they were really on the same page. And then the defense, surprisingly, was giving up big chunks of yards and touchdowns to the Giants. So that wavered me a little bit about my confidence in the Buccaneers. And so when I checked the spread this morning, it had actually gone more in the favor of the Bucs. So now it's with it at 5.5, and the Saints being a team that not only plays in close games all year long, but have a division game here, ones that are normally close. I really don't have any problem taking the Saints. I think that they're actually the smart bet here. They are 2-5 against the spread, but this is the first game in which they've been favored underdogs, all year long. So at 5.5, I'll take the Saints, and I expect this to be a close game within a field goal.
I'm actually going to take the Bucs, and I just look at the complement of weapons that Tom Brady has right now, and he would be the other quarterback that I put in that MVP conversation with, obviously, a Patrick Mahomes and a Russell Wilson. He's playing really, really good, and the degree of difficulty in his throws is taking me back to Tom Brady 5-6 years ago. He seems re-energized. Oh, and he just gets like his somehow new best friend, Antonio Brown. He's eligible to return this week. He has zero guaranteed money, which means he has zero excuses why this shouldn't work and he shouldn't be motivated to play football. His relationship with Mike Evans seems to be much better on the field. I just see the Bucs continuing to ascend. They stubbed their toe a little bit, obviously, against the Giants, but the Giants are a better defense than they are a football team. And when it matters, the Bucs came through. And I actually am going to pick the Bucs at home by 5.5. Now, I've given my Survivor, and of course, as a Dallas Cowboys fan, it would just be, so poetic if the time that I picked them to lose in Survivor, they happened to decide to play well and win, and thus they cost me money and a season full of heartache. But I'm picking the Pittsburgh Steelers, which is somewhat sacrilegious, but I am going with my eyes, and they're a great football team. Who are you picking in Survivor? Because the last couple of weeks, there hasn't been as many obvious choices. So who you got going this week?
Yeah, I mean, first of all, the Cowboys beating the Steelers would be the most 2020 thing there is, right? Like that would perfectly capture 2020. I was going to go with the Steelers over the Cowboys because I think that is a no-brainer. But the Steelers are going to be a good value pick in Survivor the rest of the year. So if you don't necessarily want to use them, if you're still alive and cooking in your Survivor pool and haven't picked the Steelers yet, hold on and take the Patriots. Stream the Jets. We've been doing it all year and it hasn't lost us a game yet. So when else are you going to use the Patriots? If you haven't used them yet, use them here against the Jets. That's my pick.
Yeah, streaming the Jets hasn't let you down thus far, so wise man to continue to do it. Hopefully we haven't let you down thus far with our picks. Hopefully you enjoyed this. Let us know in the comments who you're picking. Enjoy the games.